Jesus was never intending to create followers of humanity, but to transform them into leaders. He merely showed the way. Over the years, I have thought deeply about the phenomenon of Jesus. I have devoured countless books, had many conversations with wise people, and reflected extensively on what this legendary appearance has meant and still means. Let me be clear. I respect everyone's religious beliefs, just as I appreciate having my own convictions respected. This is how I have come to see it, supported by what I experience as impulses from above. First of all, I believe that the person Jesus of Nazareth was not the same as the Christ we have come to know through a particular religious doctrine. Perhaps it happens something like this. God, Source, the all that is, or simply the creator of the universe, decided that Earth and all living beings needed a higher frequency of energy in order to move through the coming times of ascension. In the world as we know it, there has always been, and still is, much darkness, or places where the light has been forgotten. Therefore, an exceptionally high vibration was needed to help humanity find its way and to illuminate those dark places. That is where the high Christ energy was needed. But that Christ energy was of such a high frequency that it could not simply incarnate all at once through an ordinary human being born into physical form. An intermediate stage was necessary. A highly evolved soul would first descend into physical existence, and through various teachers, methods of learning, and spiritual training, prepare itself to receive that higher Christ energy. That, to me, was Jesus of Nazareth, the Essene. During his development toward higher consciousness, Jesus traveled throughout the Middle East and learned from many wise masters, until the day came when he was ready to receive the Christ energy. That took place in the desert, where he was able to receive the Christ. Later, he was baptized by John the Baptist, and then he was ready to begin his work. From this perspective, one could say that the Christ we know was, in a sense, a walk-in. We are therefore speaking of two incarnations. The person Jesus of Nazareth and the Christ the latter was not so much a person as a high divine entity that manifested itself in physical form. Christ then spread his teachings with the intention of initiating humanity into the path toward the light. He demonstrated that path himself by saying, "I am the way." Not that we were supposed to do everything in order to follow him, but that we were meant to walk our own path towards enlightenment. Jesus never intended to create clones of himself. Instead, Christ showed humanity that we ourselves are meant to become leaders, rather than endlessly follow leaders. In my view, this is one of the greatest misunderstandings, the belief that we are supposed to follow others. As Bashar puts it, Jesus the Christ never intended to create followers. His intention was to help humanity find its way by showing an example. Therefore, "I am the way" was not an invitation to follow him blindly. It was an invitation to follow his example, to discover the Christ within ourselves and bring that Christ consciousness to life. At our core, we are all Christ. We have simply forgotten. why am I talking about this? Because, in my view, there are many misleading stories circulating about Christ. Once again, we search outside ourselves for enlightenment, while the very thing we are seeking can only ultimately be found within ourselves. That is what Christ taught us. We are all the way, but we must actually walk that way. Or, as the Sufi saying goes, the fruits are lying along the road, but I still have to walk the road. That is what I believe Christ wanted to teach us. And finally, the Christ we are speaking about was intisives, not a person, but a divine energy that manifested itself in physical form. Perhaps it is therefore time to let go of our fixation on the person and begin looking for the Christ within ourselves. And do we really believe that Christ did not know how his physical life would come to an end? His death and resurrection show us that humanity is eternal, even though we do not remain forever in physical form. Christ transcended physical existence to death and then rose again. The same possibility exists within humanity. That, as I see it, is what Christ came to teach us. This is how I understand it, with great respect for those who see things differently.